What's going on, everybody? My name's Tenebris Infinite, and welcome to 15 beginner tips for Second Extinction. Today we'll be going over combat tips, mobility tips, and some general tips to get you all into proper Apex dino-slaying machines. But before we talk about these tips, let's first introduce you to the heroes and weapons you'll be starting off with. For weapons, you'll start with the pistol, which is the lightest and easiest to wield gun in the game. With the fastest reload and the lowest spread and recoil, the pistol is a reliable sidearm for getting you out of tight spots when ammo for your primary weapon is low. The assault rifle, which is a great medium-range rifle with middling stats all around. It's definitely a go-to gun for its ease of use. The minigun, which is specific to Rosie, with absolutely insane DPS, the minigun cuts through hordes of dinos like a hot knife through butter. The grenade launcher, which is specific to Amir. The grenade launcher is excellent for crowd control, and due to its explosive damage, it's an excellent weapon for fighting any sort of armored dino or big threat. The shotgun, which is my personal favorite. The shotgun packs an absolutely massive punch. Though unruly, its ability to rip dinos apart is pretty friggin' rad. And the scout rifle, a sniper rifle best used for the longest range combat out of all of the beginner weapons, but it's also a really solid weapon up close if you have no other options. Now let's talk about the heroes. Rosie is a hybrid tank support unit. With the highest health in the game, Rosie can take a serious beating. Her passive ability, Field Repairs, allows you to heal damaged health segments, bolstering her tankiness. Her static barricade allows you to set traps and walls for dinos to keep them at bay as you start spinning up your minigun. And positive reinforcement, which is her support role, she increases teams' defenses and gives them a short health regen, sharing the love of her passive regen to all the players on your team. Amir, the Recon Master. With the lowest health of all the characters, but insane damage potential, Amir is the glass cannon of the current heroes. His situational awareness helps you keep tabs on any unforeseen dinos, and his orbital surveillance will ping all of the dinos in the area around you, keeping your team aware of any dinos in the location. And finally, his biggest benefit, the Precision Strike. A friggin' huge laser beam that cuts through the biggest of adversaries in the game. Even T-Rexes are made light work from this crazy laser beam. Next up, Ortega, the forward assault unit. With middling health, she's not quite as soft as Amir, but not quite tanky like Rosie. Her ability to equip two primary weapons makes her one of the most versatile heroes in Second Extinction. Her dash ability makes her the fastest and most mobile of all the heroes, and her special ability Combat High puts her into a frenzied state, dealing continuous crit damage, reload and switch guns faster, and she can even maintain this state as long as she's dealing damage to an enemy. And lastly, Jurgen, the stealthiest hero of the bunch. If you like long-range combat, Jurgen's your guy. His low-profile ability allows him to launch sneak attacks on enemies, play hit-and-run tactics, and overall play off incredibly well with late-game scout rifle upgrades. His satchel charges are an unlimited high explosive that is great for crowd control and taking down the heavier dinos. And Mask Scent, his special ability, will allow you to disorient huge groups of dinos around you and either heal up, raise a counterattack, or make some distance to go into a low profile. Now with the heroes and weapons out of the way, we're about to get into the tips and tricks, but first off let's talk about your loadout before you start going into a mission. In the loadout you'll be able to select your weapons, and you'll be able to select your equipment. In the beginning, you'll start off with pretty limited equipment supplies, but as the game goes on and as you gain levels, you'll be unlocking new pieces of equipment and new weapons to use, and I highly advise that you experiment with all of the weapons and all of the pieces of equipment that you earn and unlock throughout the game. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's start getting into these tips and tricks. Now for the first tip, equipment and ammo. You start the game with equipment and ammo drops, but you don't need to worry about picking between the two. And late game, you won't even need them at all. You can find supply stashes at every single drop point, which refills your ammo. And across the map, you can find equipment and ammo drops on everything from reactivated camps, relay stations, dead bodies, destroyed containers, and as rewards for certain side missions. You'll never be in short supply of equipment and ammo as long as you take stock from these locations. Find your main hero and loadout. You'll want to find which hero you perform best with in Second Extinction and what guns best suit your playstyle. To do so, you'll want to experiment with each hero and upgrade guns as much as possible. Guns have absolutely wild upgrades, which you can start choosing after hitting level 2, so try out each and every upgrade that really piques your interest. For the next tip, you'll want to grind for 5-star ratings early on. With 5-star ratings, you'll receive the best rewards per mission, earn the most experience towards leveling up, and as a bonus you'll be able to have varied missions which will keep a sense of variety to things as you play through the game. You'll want to target burrows and hollows specifically for really big gains, but outside of that, try to find the side missions you like the most and search out for them during the main missions you'll be completing. Also, on top of that, for an extra pro tip, pick up every single bit of dino that drops as you take them down. It's essentially bonus experience alongside crafting materials for upgrading your guns, so you won't want to miss any of them as they drop. And for the last general tip, communicate with your team, either directly over voice chat or with the callouts that the game offers if you don't fancy talking. The game offers a huge variety of callouts, from pointing out locations, showing where ammo or equipment is, or calling out a huge threat like a Rex or a large pack of dinos. Using communication with your team will lead to much smoother missions in multiplayer and really ease the flow of things as you play with either your team or even with just a few randoms through the matchmaking system. So for the first mobility tip, let's talk about dodging. When dodging, you just need to jump in any one of the 7 directions allowed at this point. You can dodge backwards, back left or back right, to the right and to the left, and you can even perform a small singular dodge forwards, either left or right. You can also chain together multiple dodges, so remember to try to stay mobile when you're out there slaying dinos. Now, when you're dealing with a ton of dinos attacking you from every direction, you're bound to get clipped every once in a while, but the point of dodging is to persist with it to minimize the damage you're taking and make even spacing between you and your enemies so you can mount a proper counter assault. Next up, let's talk about sliding. Sliding isn't as effective at avoiding incoming damage as dodging is, but it's incredibly useful for multiple other things. It gives you a short speed burst at the beginning of the slide, so you can use it tactfully to travel a short distance much faster than you can sprint it. As well, when you're sliding, you have the ability to queue up a melee attack, reload or heal, or put yourself into an optimal position to launch a dino into the air. Now let's talk about sliding and dodging while reloading. When you're reloading, you cannot sprint or you'll end your reload, at least currently in Second Extinction. So to keep yourself maneuverable while reloading, you'll want to start sliding just before you start reloading. Then to keep that maneuverability up, you'll want to perform a few dodges as you finish the reload sequence. This way you aren't a sitting duck while you're reloading your guns.
No! My baby's run dry. Got to reload.
Just like how you can reload shortly after sliding and while dodging, you can do the same as you heal. Now this is especially useful for healing as you get slowed down pretty heavily while you heal. Keeping your mobility up means you will get the most out of your stim pack, and you'll also keep the dinos at bay, meaning that you aren't completely swarmed right after you're done healing. And for our final mobility tip of the day, it's having the high ground. If there's anything I learned from Star Wars, it's that the high ground is the big brain 200 IQ play. In Second Extinction, you can vault up most ledges in the map, and the dinos will follow you up those ledges. Maneuvering up ledges so the dinos climb up can set up some really good scenarios of having easy to pick off dinos. As well, the dinos have to climb down after you, which just further leaves them open for the taking. Always try to assess the area you're fighting in so you can use these opportunities of elevation.
Cuida de ellos como cuidas de mí y ayúdanos a cumplir nuestra misión.
For our first combat tip, we'll talk about sliding to close distance. When you spot a dino you want to take down, you always want to use your slide to get in close. This can put you into a perfect position to either stagger an enemy, launch them up in the air, or get an advantageous first strike against a specific enemy like an alpha or a watcher or a bull. In the future, we're going to be going into how to take on each of these dinos over the next week or so definitely stay tuned for specific tips and tricks on each dino. But for now, the best offense in Second Extinction is a fast and overwhelming offense, and sliding into combat can be the best way to get that started. Now, I've talked about this one quite a bit at this point, so let's talk about launching dinos. Possibly the most satisfying thing you can do in Second Extinction. Launching dinos can happen to any of the lighter dinos, specifically the various forms of raptors. In order to launch a dino, you just need a high-power gun of any sort. Optimally, sliding in to launch an enemy is the best approach because the higher your angle of shot, the higher you'll potentially launch the dino. Now, not only is launching dinos fun and satisfying, but it also puts you in the perfect scenario to finish the dino off with a follow-up attack if it survived the initial launch. I highly advise everyone plays around with this, as it not only can make some really funny shit happen, but it's super useful too. Next up, let's talk dino weak points. These are shown by a special hit marker on your target reticle when you're hitting them. For raptors, it's exactly where you would expect, right in the face. But with bigger dinos, it's shown by a glowing point on their body. Getting to weak points on big dinos can be a little tricky, but with some persistence, it will massively cut down on the amount of ammo they require to be taken down. Again though, stay tuned for tips and tricks on how you can get all of these dinos taken down with ease in the very near future. In Second Extinction, you can crouch to improve your hip-fire aim. Crouching doesn't really improve aiming down sights, but it massively improves the accuracy and precision that you can have when you're shooting and firing from the hip. I think that it's almost like a 2 times increase on your aim, so a lot of times if you can find the opportunity to crouch down while you're in the middle of combat, you'll be able to optimize your aim and hit the dinos a lot more reliably, having the weapon spread affect you far less negatively. Second Extinction offers melee in the form of using your rifle butt or your weapon butt to actually hit the opponent, and this can be incredibly useful in close quarters combat, in making some space between you and the enemies. It can conserve your ammo, and sometimes it's the best, most optimal method to actually dealing with a particular type of dino. Now, with melee, there is a set rate on how fast you can melee, so keeping that in mind when you're dealing with enemies to make sure that you aren't trying to melee a little bit too early is a good thing to keep in mind when you're utilizing melee in Second Extinction. As well, you can kind of buffer a melee attack by charging it up a little bit. Though it doesn't do any increased damage, being able to hold your melee as you slide into an enemy or as you're quickly turning around is incredibly optimal for buffering your melee attack and making sure that you're able to enterprise upon that melee attack after executing it. Now with melee, you can actually pull it off while you're sprinting, while you're dodging, and while you're sliding. So you can use all of these movement mechanics to close distance between you and your enemies to make sure that you're getting the most use out of your melee attacks. Lastly here, let's talk about the element system in Second Extinction, another one of my favorite things in the game. Currently at launch in Second Extinction, there are 3 types of elements that we can use: electricity, poison, and fire. Elements are ineffective against dinos of the same type, so electricity is ineffective on electric raptors, and poison is ineffective on acid raptors. This might change as the game goes through its early access, but I personally really like the idea of elements being set for enemies and them being invulnerable to their own element affinity. So first up, let's talk about poison. Poison, when used by the player, softens up an enemy's defense, allowing you to essentially deal great damage against any enemy that has the purple glow of poison. Poison is pretty unique in that currently the only gun to make use of it is the carbine, with no equipment options for it. Poison is really great for taking down beefy enemies like flatbacks, bulls, and rexes, but also makes light work of raptors, providing them to be in a one-shot state for as long as they're poisoned. If you ever wanted to live out your fantasy of shooting Barney in the face, poison is definitely the way to go. Next up, electricity. This does exactly what you'd expect, paralyzing a foe to make for crowd control or an easy target. Electricity comes in either the SMG, the shock grenade, or Rosie's static barricade skill. The SMG has a chance to electrify the opponent on contact, the shock grenade paralyzes an area of effect, and Rosie's fence will paralyze and damage any enemies that are caught in it while it's active. Paralyzing enemies can set up some really slick wombo combos and team tactics, so you definitely want to experiment with it. And for the last element of the day, fire. Fire has so many uses to it, it's not even funny. It causes chip damage over time, staggers enemies with their little "I'm on fire" dance, and persists in its area of effect for longer than any of the other elements. You can use fire for crowd control or taking down huge dinos with ease, and also for thinning out a herd of dinos, immolating any of the weaker dinos in absolute seconds. With fire, you also have the most options of all of the elements. You have the shotgun's Dragon's Breath upgrade, the incendiary grenade, and Rosie's minigun with a couple other upgrades to it. The shotgun has a smaller area of effect than the incendiary grenade, meaning the incendiary is better for carpeting a wide area with flames, while the shotgun is better for setting select groups of dinos ablaze. Rosie gets fire in 2 forms with her minigun. One being a % chance to ignite an enemy with your typical bullets, and then the more fun heat wave that happens when she overheats her minigun. All in all, with excellent potential for expanding the element system here in Second Extinction, I'm really excited to see how this is going to expand and evolve over time. So there you dudes go, 15 absolutely awesome tips and tricks for Second Extinction. I want to know, how have you been enjoying Second Extinction so far if you've started playing the early access? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like and potentially subscribe if you want more Second Extinction content right here on my channel. But for now, I've been Tenebris, you've been awesome, thank you so much for watching my video, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.